Hello, you're welcome. It's Henry the computer guy, and today we are going to be working with cell referencing. But before we do it practically, let's first take a minute and understand what it means. A cell reference refers to a cell or a range of cells on a worksheet that can be used in a formula so that Microsoft Excel can find values or data that you want that formula to actually calculate for you. In other words, you can use a cell reference to refer to the data from one or more cells on a worksheet, or to refer to the data contained in different areas of a worksheet, or you can refer to the data on other worksheets in the same workbook. It can be either way. And in this video, you're going to be learning how you can use the cell references. Down here, I've already created a file that has some of the examples we are going to be using in our session, and you will be able to understand the cell referencing. But before we begin the examples, we have to talk about the types of cell referencing. How many types of cell referencing do we have? We have 3 types of cell referencing, whereby we have the relative cell reference, we have the absolute cell reference, we can also have the mixed. But at times some people say there are 4 types of cell referencing because the mixed is divided into 2. That makes it a 4. So they can as well be right. And in our video, we are actually going to begin with a relative. When do we need to use the relative? Or what does the relative mean? Under relative referencing, the contents of the cell are always changing whenever the formula is copied to another cell. That means that we don't have dollar signs here. So whenever you copy that formula to another cell, it will keep on changing depending on where you are. So by default, all cell references are relative. When copied across multiple cells, they change based on the relative position of rows and columns. For example, in our work here, they are telling us that we are going to be getting the total, which is the price multiplied by the quantity. And we have to fill all these other cells. That means that when we copy our formula to different cells, it will keep on changing depending on the position where we are. Let's try that example and see. Equals, that means that we need the total, which is going to be the price multiplied by the quantity. We shall have the price times the price times the quantity. Then we press enter. So now we shall come and drag our formula to other cells and we see how it looks like. So when we come and click in the first cell here, we shall look at our formula bar. The formula is telling us that it is B3 times C3. When we click in the second, it changes to 4. When we click in the third, it changes to 5. It goes on changing like that. So that is what we call the relative cell reference. The contents of the cell are always changing depending on where you are, or whenever the formula is copied to another cell. That is what we call the relative. On our cells, we don't have any dollar signs there. That means that we call that one the relative. Are we together? Now, when we come to the absolute, absolute is the opposite of the relative. That means that you may be in need of, let's say, making some things to be static or not changing. That means that we shall be able to make them absolute and leave those ones that you want to be changing to be relative. Are we together? So now, in our example here, they are trying to tell us that the sales tax is the price multiplied by the tax. That means that we are going to be multiplying all these ones by this one. So this one has to be, that means that the E2 has to be absolute, whereas these ones have to be relative. Let's try it and see. So they are telling us that we are going to be putting equals. Now we may be in need of, let's say, using of our brackets. We can open our brackets and put in what we want. For example, the price multiplied by the quantity. Then we close our bracket and multiply it again by the tax as our formula is telling us. multiply it again by the tax. Remember the tax is indicated up here, which is 0.08. So, but that means that we are going to be multiplying this tax by all these other values. These other values are changing, but the tax doesn't change. So we have to make it absolute. So if you want to make something absolute, you'll be using the function key F4 on your keyboard, such that you can put the dollar signs to make it absolute. That's why when you look here, they're telling you that A is having a dollar sign and the 2 is having a dollar sign before. So that means that the column and the row will not be changing whenever the formula is copied to another cell. So we shall press our function 4 onto our keyboard to put dollar signs there. So it has actually put a dollar sign on E and a dollar sign on 2. Then we press enter and we drag down our formula and see what we shall be having. So we have our answers as this. So when you click on the first one here, it shows that this one is relative, but this one is absolute. Relative, the other one is absolute. The other one is relative, the other one is absolute. So this one keeps on changing, but this one does not change. So this E2 has been made absolute. So that is the difference between the relative and the absolute. The relative keep on changing, but the absolute will remain constant or not changing. Are we together? That is it. So let's get another answer here. They're telling us that the total is supposed to be the price multiplied by the quantity, then we add on the sales tax. Let's say equals, we open our bracket, we put in our price as they have told us. We multiply it by the quantity. Then we close our bracket, we add our sales tax we have just got. Then we press enter. So now let's come and fill our other cells with the formula. So when you come and click here, this is B4, C4, D4. So when you come down here, it changes to 5. This one changes to 6. So this is also relative. That means that we can also get our total answer down here by saying equals the summation of the above. Of the above. That means that we are going to get the summation of our range from the above here. So we press enter and get the total answer. So that is the difference between the relative and the absolute. The relative keep on changing, whereas the absolute will remain constant or not changing. So let's come to the mix and see how it works. So under this example, or under mix referencing, one of the two is fixed but not both. Either the column is fixed but the row is not fixed, or the row is fixed but the column is not fixed, as you see it down here. Now the A is not having a dollar sign, but the 2 is having the dollar sign. That means that that 2 is absolute. Then here the column is having the dollar sign. That means that it is the one that is absolute, but the 2 is not absolute, or it is relative. So we want to see how we can use this mix. So we have our table for commission and our table for tax. And we have the salesperson, we have the sales and the commission. So they want us to calculate the commission of these people. Let's first of all make this answer. So they are telling us that the commission earned is supposed to be the sales multiplied by the commission rate. We are going to try that. We shall say equals, these are the sales, then we have to multiply it by the commission rate. So we say times the commission rate, which is this one. Now, let's first of all do it when it is relative, and we see the answers it is giving us. So when we come and drag our formula to other cells, it will give us that. Now, when you click here, it is showing you that it has changed it to C6, the way we want it, but this one has changed it to C2. That means that it is coming to something that is empty. It is also this one going to something that is empty to 3, like that. It goes on changing to D2, which is empty, to E2, which is empty, when you look at it. So that means that we have to log. Let's rub this one and do it again. Let's rub it and do it again and see how we can get the correct answer. So now, when we come back here, we shall say equals our sales multiplied by the commission rate. But we have to log it That means that we are going to lock the B such that it doesn't change to a C and a D and an E. So we have to lock it on only the B. We press the function 4 onto our keyboard to switch between the dollar signs. So we press it once, it puts the double. Then we press it again, it puts it on 2. Then we press it again, it puts it on only B. Is it the right answer? Let's try and see whether it works. Press enter. So let's drag and see. It gives us some of the answers. Now, when we come to our formula here, it is showing us that it is using C6 but B2. Even this one, it is using D6 as the sales, but it is using B2 as the what? As the commission rate. So it is now correct. That means that we have a mixed reference here. Only B is locked, but the row is not locked. Are we together? That is what we call the mixed reference. But this one is with the column fixed, row not fixed. Now let's come down here and also try to get the tax paid. And they're telling us that the tax paid is equal to the gross pay times the tax rate. So we shall come here and say equals, then we get the gross pay, which is this one. We multiply it with the tax rate, which is 0.065. Let's first of all do it when it is still relative and see the answers it will give us. Press enter. So when you come and drag your answer to all others, you see it is giving us now this one. It is showing us that our formula is again B15, whereby we have our B15 here. It is right, but multiplied with B12. Now this means that it keeps on going down. Are we together? It keeps on going down. That means that it is wrong. When we come to this one, it has used this word. That means that it is on B16, B13. B13 is a word. So we have to lock it onto this one. That means that we have to rub it and do it again. So we shall again say equals, then we shall get the gross pay, then multiplied by the tax rate, whereby the tax rate is here. But remember, we have to make this one absolute. So we come onto our keyboard and press function 4 to switch between the dollar sign. So now we are locking it into only 11. We don't want it to go down to 12, 13 and others. So we are locking it onto only this one, but it will be on B. Are we together? So it keeps the data locked on only 11. That's why we put the dollar sign on only 11, but the B is not having. So we shall press enter and try to get other answers. Drag the formula down. So when you come and click here, you're seeing that it is using the B15 and the B11, which is this one. When you come down here, it uses the B16, the B11. It doesn't change now. It doesn't change, whereas these ones are keeping, or they will keep on changing. That means that some of them are relative and some of them are absolute. That is actually how we can work with a mixed cell referencing. That's why you will hear some people saying that we have 4 types of cell referencing. We have the relative, we have the absolute, we have the mixed. But the mixed is divided into 2, whereby, for example, we shall have the one where the row does not change and the one where the column does not change. That is actually how we can work with the 3. And now we have another sheet here that is actually having catering invoice. Let's come to it and see. It is going to help us to know how we can work with cell references with multiple sheets. And they are giving us some of the information here. We have menu items, here we have paper items, we have rental equipments, service fee, and the total. When you look at it here, they are telling us that in our formula that for us to get this value, it is going to be going to be got from the grand total of the relative sheet. So let's first of all go to the relative sheet and see the grand total, which is here. Of course, we didn't calculate it, so we have to calculate it here, which is going to be equals to the sum of all the above in the total. Then we press enter. That means that we have got the grand total. So they want us to get this value from the relative sheet. Remember, it is under D14 into this sheet. So we are going to actually be working with multiple sheet, the relative and the invoice. So we come to it and say, so we want to put the other value that we have calculated as a grand total into this cell. So what we do, we shall come and say equals, we write the name of the sheet where it is, and it is relative. So I will come and type relative. After typing relative, I will come and put an exclamation mark. I'll put an exclamation mark. Then I put the cell where that value was. Of course, it was in D14. I'll write a D under 14. That means that it is going to get the other grand total and bring the value here. Let's click aside and see whether it brings it. Of course, it is the one. I think let's come and check it. It is the value. So they have brought this value from this sheet to our catering invoice. Remember, if you're having a name, for example, that is having a space, for example, when you're dealing with a name like this one, you will use this one. For example, let me write it here. It will be, for example, equals, we put it under the quote. Then we shall write catering invoice. Then we close it with that quote. Then we put an exclamation mark. Then we put the cell where the value is. That means that if you're working with something that has a space, you have to include these quotes. If you're having, let's say, a sheet that is having only one word, then you can just type it the way we typed it there. Are we together? So it can help you to work with it. So that is it. When you look here, we have relative. That relative stands for the name of the sheet, and the D14 where, or the cell where that value that we want to bring here, where it is located. And now they're telling us that service fee is 18% of the menu items, and we have got the menu items already now. So we shall come and get this value, which is going to be equals, and 18% is actually 0.18. Then multiplied by the value that we have got here, which is the menu items. We click there. Then we shall press enter. So it will calculate that value for us. Then for the total cost, we shall be using the summation equals sum of the above. We shall highlight them like that. Then we press enter. So we have actually learned how we can work with, let's say, cell references with multiple sheets. So this tutorial has actually been on the cell referencing, that is the relative, the absolute, the mixed, and also working with multiple sheets when you're using the cell references. So if you have any question, actually put it in the comment section below, then I'll be able to help you. It's been Henry the Computer Guy, and if you're new to my channel, please help me and subscribe to my channel. Or if you have anyone that actually needs this content, please help me and share that link to that person. Bye bye, I sign out.